Hi, my name is Faiza, and I'm a second-year dental hygiene student. For our presentation, we decided to cover the issue of poverty. Our initial plan was actually to interview potential candidates in the city of Welland about their experiences with poverty. However, during one of our group meetings, we actually came to realize that all of us had something in common. All of us had experienced relative poverty at some point in our lives. For some of us, it came through unexpected events in our lives, and for others, it was just due to the country we were born in. Relative poverty is when one can afford the basic necessities of life without maintaining an average standard of living. I, for one, had an experience with relative poverty while growing up in Pakistan. In the next few clips, you will be hearing my experience with relative poverty, followed by Farida, April, and Melissa's experiences. Social class in Pakistan has more to do with ascribed status, which is what we're born with, rather than achieved status, which one can get through education and employment. In Pakistan, there's always rivalry going on between the Punjabis and the Muhajirs. In most cases, it doesn't even matter if you're well educated if you're not a Punjabi. Punjabis are those who are actually native to the country of Pakistan, meaning that they have always been living there, while Muhajirs are those who actually migrated from India to Pakistan during the partition that took place, which separated Pakistan and India as two different countries. Despite having the same culture and religious beliefs, if you've migrated from India, then you're still referred to as a migrant or Muhajir in Pakistan instead of being called a Pakistani. My family would be classed as Muhajirs, and it was because of this social inequality that we had to face relative poverty in Pakistan. My dad was a chemical engineer who had actually studied in England before going back to Pakistan. But despite his qualifications, he was never promoted in his company because he was not a Punjabi. Because of his job, actually, we fell into the middle class in Pakistan. But even with that, we were not able to afford to live in a home that was secure. The neighborhood we could afford to live in was not always safe. I remember at the age of 9, hearing gunshots outside our house and finding out that my next door neighbor had passed away. I remember our family closing all the lights in our house during curfew hours to make it appear as if no one was home. I remember waking up next morning and walking to the local grocery store and finding it caved in with bullets. And most of all, I remembered my mom in panic every time my dad left for work and always praying that he would return home safely. All this happened because we were Muhajirs and not Punjabis, and clearly did not deserve the same status as the people that are native to Pakistan. Just because of that reason, we could not afford to live in a safer neighborhood that most Punjabis were at an advantage of. I find the stories of the Muhajirs very funny, because in India we're known as non-Indians, even though our ancestors lived in India for so many years. And in Pakistan, we're not known as Pakistanis either because we migrated from India, so we're referred to as migrants most of the time. This was my experience with relative poverty, which has made me into the person I am today. It was because of actually these experiences that my dad decided to come to Canada. And it is these experiences who shaped me into a hard worker who hopes to achieve a higher social class through the education and the achievements that I hopefully will be able to achieve in Canada.
In my dream, children sing a song of love for every boy and girl. The sky is blue and fields are green, and laughter is the language of the world. Then I wake and all I see is a world full of people in need. Tell me why does it have to be like this? Tell me why. Is there something I have missed? Tell me why. 'Cause I don't understand when so many need somebody. We don't give a helping hand. Tell me why. Tell me why. Tell me why. Just tell me why. Tell me why. Does it have to be like this? Tell me why.
My name is Farida and I'm a second year dental hygiene student. I'm from Afghanistan, and when we were in Afghanistan, my father had an exporting business. We were one of the richest families in Afghanistan, but in our neighborhood we had tons of poor people. Some of our neighbors, they didn't even have food to eat. All they used to eat was like onions, water, and just a piece of bread. But my father, he helped people as much as he could. We used to give them food, clothing, and even my father paid for a woman's rent for 2 years. But eventually my father lost all his business due to the wars, and we were faced to move to Pakistan. We were 11 people in our family, and when we moved to Pakistan, we didn't have enough money to rent a room. But eventually we rent a small size room, and it was so small that during bedtime I could not stretch out my legs. It was like so tiny. And we lived in Pakistan in 8 years, and during all those 8 years I never had breakfast and I never had dinner. The only time that we ate was around 3 o'clock, and I remember I used to eat as much as I could, and I used to eat till my stomach started hurting, because I felt like this is the only time that I can eat food, so I should eat as much as I can. And we never had vegetables, we never had fruits. When my family and I moved to Canada, again we faced poverty. We were on welfare for the first 2 years, and we also used the food banks for the first 2 years. I remember how me and my younger brother, we used to go to the food banks, and it took us like an hour and a half. We used to change 3 buses and also walk another 15 minutes. Basically, I never had a good childhood. I remember when I was in Afghanistan, in the mornings when I woke up, my kidneys would hurt because of the sounds of the bomb during all nights. And also every morning we used to wake up and see who is still alive in the neighborhood. I have seen dead bodies, I've seen people get killed. I feel very lucky that now I'm in Canada because I'm safe. At least I can sleep well during the nights, feeling that I'm safe, or I'll be alive tomorrow.
Margot. I'm here today to share with you my experience in regards to relative poverty. When I was 17 years old, I had my first daughter and needed to rely on social assistance. This was very difficult for me. I had many hardships. I do recall one incident in particular where I needed medication for my daughter. She had a high fever and a very bad cough, so I needed Tylenol and cough syrup. I didn't have $15 to go and get the medication that I needed, and I had to go over to my neighbors, which I didn't know very well, and ask them for the medication. Thank goodness they had some, and you know, I got some money the next day and went and bought the medication that she needed. This was just very, very embarrassing and a very hard thing to do. There were other hardships as well. I didn't have a lot of clothing for us, so I did need to shop at the Goodwill for our clothing. Again, this was kind of embarrassing if you've seen somebody when you were going in or coming out. The other thing was too that there wasn't always enough money to buy lots of food, so a lot of the times I would go out without food just so I could put food into my daughter's mouth. I've changed drastically since then. I am now married and I do have 2 beautiful daughters and a wonderful husband. I don't struggle financially anymore, but I do hold that in my heart, those hardships that I did have. It makes me work harder for everything that I do have today and really appreciate everything that I have today.
Rise when I gave the word. Now in the morning I sleep alone. Sweep the streets I used to own. I used to roll the dice, feel the fear in my enemy's eyes. Listen as the crowd would sing. Now the old king is dead, long live the king. 1 minute I held the key. Next the walls were closed on me, and I discovered that my castle stand upon Mary's in a foreign field. For some reason I can't explain. Once you've gone, it was never, never an honest word. That was when I ruled the world.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm 23 in the dental hygiene program, and I'm here to share my experience about living in relative poverty as a student, which many of you can relate to. Basically, I get by each month with paying my rent, which doesn't leave me much for, let's say, extra groceries or, you know, even a little extra on the side for maybe a new outfit. Basically, I don't get assistance from my parents. They're not well off either, so I have to make ends meet with what I got. Basically, I work in the summer, you know, overtime, what I can do, make as much money as I can, and to afford school where I am today. So, and I haven't got any loans or anything of the sort. So as of now, I don't have a job, so I have to make my ends meet, you know, and I don't have a car, so I have to walk every day to and from school, half an hour, you know, winter, spring, summer, fall, it doesn't matter.
1 in 6 Canadians live in poverty. We did this video to show just how common poverty can be even within a small group of people like ourselves. As you may have noticed from the video, poverty also exists at different levels. For me, it was due to the social class I belonged to in Pakistan. For Farida, it was due to the country that she was born in. Relative poverty affected April because she was dependent on the welfare system, which didn't provide her with enough food and clothing for herself and her child. And it affected Melissa as a student who still struggles to make ends meet. After making this video, we all came to realize that poverty had a funny way of making us stronger. It taught us self-restraint. It taught us to be more grateful for the things we have and not take things for granted. And most of all, it impacted our lives in a way that we can never forget.